when I grew up, I just didn't know queer people existed, you know. So for me, it's like I had all these thoughts in my head, like I was like, oh, like I have a crush on this girl, like, oh, I feel like I'm a guy or whatever. And I didn't know I thought I was sick. And like all the moments in my life that I didn't really understand, like went back in front of my eyes and I was like, oh shit, no, actually, yeah, I'm trans, like.
Today I'm 1 week on T. Today I'm 4 weeks on T. Today I'm 2 months on T. Today I'm 3 months on T. Today I'm 4 months on T. And today I'm 1 year on T.
Hormones make me feel good. When I don't have hormones, I'm not myself. If I didn't have them, like, yeah, I don't want to go back.
Yeah, I work, yeah, no days off, yeah, no days off.
Yeah, if I can't be around people who make me feel validated and actually see me for who I am, then I don't exist. You know, and I think it's a natural thing for human beings to want to be surrounded by people who accept them for who they are and who actually, yeah, respect their identities and see them as human beings.
And I work and I work and I work to get that money. I know that I gotta work, 'cause I'm black trans and I'm living, and I see nobody making it yet.
Being a black trans person in this world can be really, really lonely, right? Because people don't see you, right? People don't see you. When they see you as, they just don't see you as who you are, they see you as something else, right? People would make fun of me because like I didn't dress like the other girls, like, oh, but you're like such a boy or whatever, and like people bullied me all the time. Montreal, I have friends, I have support, I have fans, and it's not even just in Montreal that I have that, but it's thanks to Montreal that I have that. In Montreal, that's where I learned how to be myself. That's where people saw me for the first time.
They don't know who I am, yet they're talking about me, trying to bury me on the ground, but I won't let them do it, 'cause I'm too lousy, I'm too proud, sitting high on those trench clouds.
I started a non-profit record label called Transgenders. For me, it's just a project so that trans people can see themselves.
This is what trans looks like.
And other people can see us.
Niggas think I'm lost, nigga, I'm the boss.
And it's also good music, and we can do whatever other people can do, you know, and if not better, because we've been so underrated, and so we have to work harder than other people. I know how to work without a lot of resources, and I feel like that's one of the skills that I can share with my community.
You want it, you got it, come get it, but baby, it's yours. Scars.
I just really want trans people's narratives to be a part of the industry. Actually can be queer and you can be happy, and it doesn't have to be this terrible thing that everybody's like bullying you about and telling you that you're such a terrible person.
I'm a transgender. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. Put your hands up.
I want to be recognized as a human, and I want people like me to be recognized as humans too.
I'm a transgender.
To have people see me and just, yeah, not look at me like I'm a freak or I'm dangerous or I'm all these things. Like, no, I want people to see me for me. Like, I'm just somebody who's trying to live life and survive, and see my people do it too.
The World Meteorological Organization says there's a 70% chance of another El Nino event developing over the next 3 months. This irregular phenomenon was last seen 2 years ago and made headlines for being the cause of extreme weather patterns around the world. And the year 2016 was also recorded as the hottest year ever. El Nino is triggered by fluctuating ocean surface temperatures in the Pacific, which can trigger drought in some regions and heavy rain in others. The previous El Nino was said to be strongest ever recorded, but the WMO says the upcoming one will not be as powerful. The UN body added that climate change is affecting the traditional dynamics of these weather events.
As Hurricane Florence moves toward the East Coast, U.S. Navy ships are moving out.
Dozens of naval ships based in Norfolk, Virginia are on the move now to other parts of the Atlantic where they will wait out the storm. CBS 2's Jessica Layton here now with more on how people in the Carolinas are preparing tonight. Jessica.
Christina Maurice, the very first effects of Florence are already being felt with dangerous rip currents on the barrier islands right now. And the fear of high winds, historic rainfall, and the potential for life-threatening floods has people hitting the road to get out of the way of this very dangerous storm.
They're lining up to gas up and get out of the Carolinas ahead of this potentially catastrophic Category 4 storm barreling toward the East Coast.
We here in North Carolina are bracing for a hard hit.
A state of emergency has been declared by governors in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. That includes evacuation orders starting Tuesday at noon for 1 million people living along the South Carolina coast, where the storm surge could reach 10 feet or higher.
It's going to be inconvenient for some people. It's going to be inconvenient, but we do not want to risk one South Carolina life in this hurricane.
Before the race to leave, residents ran to stores for water and bread, leaving shelves bare before the beast that is Florence arrives later this week. Propane for generators is also at a premium.
They canceled school for the rest of the week here, so we'll probably head out later today or tomorrow.
A look from outer space shows a rapidly strengthening storm, which will gain fuel from the warm Atlantic Ocean waters. It's currently packing winds of between 130 and 140 miles an hour. Part of the worry is the way the storm is expected to linger after making landfall, dumping more rain in already saturated areas. Homeowners are hoping sandbags will provide some protection.
We've been getting a lot of rain recently as well. Ground's wet, it's not going to absorb it. So it's just going to sit up top, pile up, and eventually make its way towards the apartment.
President Trump tweeted photos of a briefing on the hurricane, saying the White House is standing by, ready to help the areas that get hit, telling those in the path of danger, "We are here for you. Be safe."
Specially trained members of the FDNY and NYPD will head to North Carolina first thing tomorrow morning. Their specialties, search and rescue, disaster recovery, and emergency triage.
This is 11-month-old Nussair. He's suffering from acute malnutrition, a victim of Yemen's 3.5-year civil war. Hunger's weakened his immune system. He's at the mercy of diseases like malaria, cholera and pneumonia. The war means his father hasn't been paid in more than a year, and his hometown, the port city of Hodeidah, is under regular assault. 35,000 children are severely malnourished in Yemen. The country is on the brink of famine. Its warring sides often deliberately obstruct deliveries of food and medicine. Hunger has become a weapon of war and is on the rise in the world's conflict zones. According to Save the Children's analysis of child hunger in the world's 10 worst conflicts, 4.5 million children under 5 will need treatment for malnutrition this year. But between August and December, 590,000 children are likely to miss out on treatment and die of starvation and disease. Without relief in these zones, that's an average of 1,600 a day, or one child a minute. The vast majority, an estimated 300,000 children, are at risk here in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where years of conflict have displaced large numbers of people from their homes. Aid groups and the UN have reportedly less than 10% of the money they need to continue saving lives here. Syria, Afghanistan, South Sudan are among the other conflicts where hunger is rife. War destroys livelihoods. It disrupts food production, and in some areas starvation is a military strategy. These are the victims. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera.
Haunting images and a rare glimpse of the war in Yemen. Displaced children sleep in a street at night. Neighborhoods that once teemed with life, now reduced to rubble. The photographs were taken last year by French photographer Véronique de Vigerie. They're part of a photojournalism festival in the French city of Perpignan.
So this is in a hospital in Saada, which is a Houthi stronghold in North Yemen. They were targeted by an airstrike, Saudi Arabia airstrike.
4 years of fighting between Iranian-backed Houthi rebels and the Saudi-led coalition have devastated Yemen. At least 15,000 people have been killed. More than 20 million are in desperate need. Few foreign journalists have been able to enter the country. It took Véronique 1 year to gain access and expose what she calls a hidden war.
Saudi Arabia is making everything possible to forbid media to access, especially North Yemen, to assess the situation of these people who are being trapped with enemies on all borders.
The photos have won an international Red Cross Prize for highlighting the suffering of civilians.
Whether it is Aleppo or Ramadi, we see the same tragedy for civilians. They are prevented from leaving or they take big risks fleeing. So for us at the International Red Cross, these photos help us show the reality of international human rights violations.
The photos of Yemen offer a rare view onto a more recent war, but there are other conflicts that have lasted for decades, and seeing them with fresh eyes is equally powerful and moving. Palestinian Khalil Hamra has been covering Gaza for more than 20 years. His striking pictures are a testimony of daily life.
My job is just to come up with an exceptional picture. You know, it's like it's something different. Like show the conflict through the beauty, so people would be able to look at a sad picture and keep looking at it, starting to think about it and the story behind it, without getting hurt from the picture itself.
The photographers exhibited here hope that by shining a light on vulnerable people in conflict, they'll show their pain, but also highlight their courage. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Perpignan, France.
The bomber targeted a local government building in Mogadishu and was followed by gunshots.
I was drinking tea when the car hit the gate. I fell down on the ground and saw other people on the ground as well. I was shocked.
This is the second suicide blast in Somalia's capital this month. Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for that blast and dozens of other previous suicide attacks. Many believe the armed group is behind Sunday's attack too.
In Al-Shabaab fighters, they tend out their attackers. They have attacked they carry out frequent attacks in Mogadishu, Somalia capital. You know, last week they attacked in Holodak district by killing civilians. And today they attacked Hodan district where hundreds of people, many people are there, and they were going, they always in their livelihood in that district.
Somalia's government, with help from the African Union, pushed out Al-Shabaab fighters from the capital in 2011. But the group still has control over territories in the southern parts of the country and continues to target both government sites and civilians in the capital. The U.S. has also been involved in targeting senior figures of the armed group. But after more than 12 years, people in Mogadishu still face the near-daily threats of attacks. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera.
Taliban militants killed dozens of Afghan police officers and soldiers in multiple attacks on Monday. The exact death toll is unclear because local Afghan officials are reporting different casualty numbers. But the New York Times estimates at least 57 people are dead. The attacks happened in 4 provinces in northern Afghanistan. During the fighting, the Taliban captured one government center, adding to the growing list of insurgent-controlled Afghan districts. This violence is just the latest to plague the country. On Sunday, the Taliban killed almost 60 people in separate attacks. There have been multiple attempts at a ceasefire between Afghan forces and the Taliban, but nothing has stuck. In July, U.S. diplomats tried to help the situation by holding face-to-face talks with Taliban representatives in Qatar, which were meant to start peace negotiations going between the Taliban and the Afghan government.
Story for the Safari run says it is set up and completed.
an advanced hall for the construction of modern centrifuges. Iran's nuclear chief added that Tehran has started developing nuclear-powered vessels within the limits of the 2015 nuclear deal. Ali Akbar Salehi said this project will take 10 to 15 years to complete. He also noted that Tehran might suspend some of the limitations on the volume and level of enrichment in reaction to Washington's withdrawal from the nuclear accord. Salehi said a final scenario can be a complete exit from the deal. However, he expressed hope that this will not happen with the help of the remaining signatories to the agreement.
Hello and welcome. This is the Top 5 on Press TV. The United States has threatened the Syrian government with a strong response in case of a chemical attack on the terrorist-held region of Idlib.
Chemical weapons in Syria. The response of the Trump administration when we had unmistakable proof twice, once in April of 2017 and once in April of this year, was to use force against the Syrian regime. Because of the use of a weapon of mass destruction that the Trump administration found unacceptable. We've tried to convey the message in recent days that if there's a third use of chemical weapons, the response will be much stronger. I can say we've been in consultation with the British.
Bolton added that the U.S. is in agreement with Britain and France over this issue. U.S. officials have accused Damascus of planning to launch a chemical attack on Idlib as the Syrian army and its allied forces prepare for an assault to purge terrorists. Russia, however, has warned Washington against any aggression towards Syria, accusing insurgents of planning a false flag chemical attack to justify a Western strike. Damascus has also emphasized a possible staged assault on civilians that will be used to blame the Syrian government.
Woodward's forthcoming book reportedly claims that President Trump is jeopardizing national security. So is it a salacious jab aimed at selling books, or is there any truth to the matter? Let's bring in Fox News contributor, former CIA station chief Daniel Huffman. Great to see you tonight.
Good to see you, too.
Let's start with North Korea. Obviously, this president has had a very different way, a very different strategy of handling this than previous administrations. So what do you make of these competing reports? First of all, that Kim Jong-un has reached out in a letter. I would like another meeting. He didn't display the big nukes at this parade, but at the same time reports that he hasn't slowed his nuke program at all.
Yeah, I think my good friend Andy Kim, who runs the CIA's Mission Center, Korea Mission Center, he and his team are working overtime to discern Kim Jong-un's true intentions. Kim Jong-un has not indicated at all that he's willing to negotiate for an itinerary for denuclearization. He hasn't provided an inventory of his nuclear weapons and his ICBMs. In short, he hasn't really taken any concrete steps towards denuclearization. He appears to want to get maximum economic gain without giving up any of the nuclear program on which his regime security relies.
You think that's what this outreach is about, this letter, which the White House describes as warm and kind? I mean, do you think that he realizes because of that last visit that was scheduled with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo that we yanked it at the last minute, the president said he's not going? Do you think that they realize, all right, we've got to try to play a little bit nice he's got a two-track policy. He's hosted Secretary Pompeo 3 times. There would have been a 4th visit, as you said, but that didn't happen because the president rightly canceled it. Kim Jong-un has called our diplomacy gangster-like. And so while on the one hand he's delivering what my Estonian friends like to call pancakes and jam to the president and try to establish good rapport with our president, which is fine, at the same time he really hasn't shown any inclination to do the real negotiations. At the end of the day, it's what Ambassador Bolton said today, which is President Trump will open the door. It's a question of whether Kim Jong-un wants to walk through it, and I think we have to be prepared for the fact that he might not. Also opening the door, Russia. Apparently, Putin has sent a letter inviting Kim Jong-un to go visit him. A Russian leader said that Kim has told her he wants to go without delay. He accepts the invitation.
Right. Kim Jong-un is playing off the great powers against one another. He and his relatives who ran that totalitarian regime over the years have been doing that. They played off China and Russia against each other, and now they're playing them off against us. Russia and China have already indicated that they want to reduce or eliminate the sanctions before denuclearization. They would also like to reduce or eliminate our presence, our military presence on the peninsula. So, I mean, Kim Jong-un recognizes that. He's trying to use it to his advantage.
I want to ask you, too, about this report that there are various nations, including the Palestinians, that they are trying to press the ICC to bring criminal charges, war crimes against U.S. officials and soldiers in Afghanistan. Here is what former Ambassador Bolton had to say about whether we're going to go along with that.
We will not cooperate with the ICC. We will provide no assistance to the ICC, and we certainly will not join the ICC. We will let the ICC die on its own. After all, for all intents and purposes, the ICC is already dead to us.
The ACLU responding to that, saying this misguided and harmful policy will only further isolate the United States from its closest allies and give solace to war criminals and authoritarian regimes seeking to evade international accountability.
I mean, this is a continuation of U.S. policy. It's not a whole lot that's new. I think the genesis of the ICC was righteous. It was in large part after the genocide in Rwanda. And the ICC was supposed to investigate crimes against humanity and war crimes and genocide, and that's all fine. But if national courts only if national courts are unwilling or unable to prosecute. And in the case of the United States and Israel, we kind of live by the rule of law, and I think that we're just fine without the ICC, and it does infringe upon our sovereignty. And so that's I think, what Ambassador Bolton is saying.
Seems to follow a theme that the ambassador, the president, many in this administration are saying that they are not going to be told what to do by the international community in many cases, including the ICC, apparently. Daniel Hoffman, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
An emotional moment as this couple sits down for their very last anniversary dinner together.
Today and yesterday, my dad started to get really weak. I mean, you can tell it's getting closer to time. My mom is just taking one day at a time.
Joe became Carrie's stepdad when she was 12. He and her mother, Carol, got married 29 years ago.
Their relationship is something everybody would strive for.
As a blended family, they had 7 kids. Then, in 2016, Joe was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer. Just weeks ago, he went home for hospice care. And coming up was his and Carol's annual wedding celebration.
We knew it was going to be their last anniversary, and we didn't want that day to be just about the death that was approaching. So his 2 sisters and sister-in-law came up with the idea for us to try to do something special.
On their anniversary at a loved one's home, Joe and Carol left the room for only 5 minutes. It was just enough time to set up a surprise.
We used their colors from their wedding, and his sister got a cake, and we got their favorite meal. His was a BLT club, and my mom's was chicken tenders.
Joe and Carol walked into the room where their first dance song played, Close Enough to Perfect by Alabama.
My mom came out and she thanked everybody, and she cried and said this would be the last one, but the one she would remember the most.
It was a memorable moment for the whole family.
He doesn't want to leave her, but he knows where he's going, and that's what we hold on to. He knows that he's going to heaven and that my mom will see him,
where he'll be waiting for her with open arms.